Today on the Kite Bag Tour, it's more recent acquisitions and vintage toys. Welcome back, everybody. I am Jesse. Today on the Kite Bag Tour, we have new toys. I have been gathering vintage kites again. I bought a bunch from a local gentleman who acquired them from a recent estate. I've gotten a couple from friends. I've been busy on eBay. And boy, oh boy, did I collect some history along the way. I can't wait to start sharing them. They're dual line, they're quad line, they're art, they're all of the things. These ones are exciting, and they're from a good chunk of American kite history right here that I've acquired recently. So I'm very, very excited to have these and to get to share them with all of you. So let's dive right in. So the first two kites that you're going to see in this video have already been on the channel flying, and this one was even in its own episode and series named for it. It's the Backtracker by Revolution. I guess it's not inaccurate to say this might be the most hated quadline kite in existence, but I maintain that is wildly unfair. We didn't really talk about the kite itself during backtracking too much. And by the way, if you enjoyed that first episode, don't worry. I have lots of new episodes planned. I have stuff coming. I've been working out a list. I got stuff. But the Backtracker, he's just a little guy. So I actually got some history on the Backtracker at Kite Party this year. I wandered up to Joe Hedzicki from Revolution, Joe Hedzicki who invented the Revolution, with the Backtracker. And the first thing he says to me, everybody wants to show me their Neos Omega. Nobody ever wants to show me their Backtracker. I've known Joe since I was probably 5 or 6. My dad's original team was sponsored by Revolution, so pretty much my entire life we've had some level of relationship with the Hedzickis and Revolution, but never had a Backtracker. They were not produced for a very large window of time, but they were produced in a huge quantity. So it's kind of odd that there's so few of them left, except that it wasn't... All right, rewinding a little here. The history of the Backtracker is a kite shop owner in Hawaii approached the Hedzickis and Revolution about having a Revolution kite produced at $100 price point. This was in the early 90s. And he basically said, look, if you can do this for me, I will sell the heck out of it. It'll be the best-selling kite you've ever made. We'll crush it. Because they were cutting edge. The Revolution 1, the Neos Omega renamed as the Rev 1, and the Rev 2 were cutting edge with their wrapped carbon frames, and that meant they were slightly pricier. So Joe sets about designing this guy. It is sort of a different aspect ratio, I guess. I don't know if aspect ratio is the right word for quad kite. It's taller than it is, than it should be for its wingspan based on the other kites in the Revolution family. And it's framed in this graphite, so it's a 2-piece leading edge. I haven't mic'd it, but I would say it's about 6 mil, and it's got 4 mil uprights, gas tubing for fittings. And what's interesting is the bridle is we'll call it the correct ratio. It came with these injection molded plastic handles, which I do have, and you saw in the backtracking video. It was tougher to fly than it probably should have been for a beginner kite. As a quad pilot with some skills, it is a laugh riot. But because it was twitchy and a little tough to fly, it was one of these things that either you learned to fly it and you loved it and you were an awesome quad pilot, or it put you off quads for 30 years. I've never heard a story in the middle between those two. I personally love it. I think it's hilarious. It does these gloriously flat axles, and it's fun to knock around the sky. The one thing I did was put it on my normal quad handles with a little bit of a more normal handle profile and some better adjustment, which really translates to some more brake. It's super flyable and a lot of fun. I would say it's as fun as a Rev 2. It's just a little bouncier, and so it's a little different. Um, I really love this one in particular in these great, like, 90s starter jacket neons and purples. And it's a type that I think if you are an established quad pilot and come across one, you really owe it another chance, because it is a lot more fun than you remember it being. So from there, we're going to dive into another kite you've seen already, and then we'll keep this rolling into the new stuff. Yes, Diesel. Yes. As usual, because we're in the kitchen, we have cat and dog guest stars. So there goes Diesel, and Nikki is going to really push his luck where kites are regarded, aren't you, my fuzzy friend? Nikki's new favorite thing is to attack wingtips. Any rate, behind me is Diesel. Yes, and she's very protective. I know you can't see her, but there's a adorable black dog sitting at my feet, barking madly because I'm holding her cat. All right, you two, off you go. Scoot. God, now they're gonna dance around my feet. Anyway, so behind me is a North Shore Radical by Top of the Line Kites. This one came to me from Hunter Brown at Focus Kites. He had a collection that had belonged to a friend of his who had unfortunately passed, that he was working on rehoming. It is in this wonderful neon double stripe. Hey, no kites, thank you. Both of you off, thank you. There we go. Unfortunately, the frame was pretty roughed up. The original frame, which was an interesting mix of tubes, some Advantage and Easton, I think. And the problem there was all of the original fittings were aluminum, and the ferrules had corroded, so the leading edges were stuck together, and just generally it was not in wonderful shape, as a lot of these older kites tend to get into. So I reframed it in Sky Shark P400. I had a bunch of spare P400 from another project. It now has a full set of APAs and a center tee from, I think it's a Flying Wings tee. I don't know. I had like 4 or 5 of them around, and XL Knox. It's effectively got a very similar frame to something like a Sky Shark frame Fury now. Original bridle and sail. And one of the cool things that this kite had with it that I was really stoked to see is the original Top of the Line Flight Squadron North Shore Radical instruction manual. I actually haven't taken this out. I really should, because I want to see what setting is what on the bridle. One thing I do think I am going to do, the last like dead original stick is the standoffs, and I just think this sort of variable standoff, I don't know if these have slid over time. There's a lot of standoff here, and I suspect that I need to make that a little closer to there. If you go watch the video I put out with this kite, you can see it, how flat it actually is in profile right now. And I suspect it needs, not that these were terribly deep kites, but I suspect it wants to be a little deeper than it is. Whether or not I'll just modify that stop, or if I'll make it new standoffs and put them in a more modern sail grabber, like a screwback or something, and just kind of finish the resto mod. I haven't totally decided. It's a good flyer once you get some wind into it and the sail pushes out onto the stops. It roars like a North Shore should, and it's beautiful to watch. And I'm just so stoked to have it. It was a kite that sort of captures the imagination from all the early videos of the teams flying it, and and it's in that great, like you said, the neon double stripe, which I think were aircraft colors. Um, I'll have to ask Carl. You know, I think it was aircraft that flew the neon double rainbow, but who knows? There were a few teams flying radicals by the end of top of the line, and really, this is, I mean, the Hawaiian and the radical are the two most prolific kites in the top of the line family, and there's kind of only one after this, and it was sort of the one that could have been everything and just didn't seem like it caught, and that's the sizzle. Um, Lower aspect ratio, deeper sail. It was an interesting kite. I flew one of Carl's for maybe 30 seconds. He brought them with him to kite party this past year. At any rate, yeah, North Shore Radical, big thing too. Like, they're big when you see the old like videos of people getting dragged around by them, but when you actually stand next to it, like, you really get a sense of just how big it is when you sit it on the ground and realize how high it actually comes up to me. But yeah, that's the Radical. So sit tight. We're gonna get into the stuff you haven't seen now, and I think we're gonna start with something a little fishy. Promised something fishy, and here we are. This is another '90s classic. From Sky to Light Kites and Joel Scholz. This is a Neptune. Joel did a number of these highly appliqued figure sport kites. There was the fish, the shark. I believe there was a hummingbird and another like bird of prey sort of bird that I'm aware of. There might have been others. Fun thing about this one too, I couldn't find it to show to you for the video, but I actually have the matching single line kite to this, or pretty close color wise, also from Skylight from Joel. This guy's cool. Dual line sport kite, but all applique out. It's got this awesome fishtail that is a sprung piece of fiberglass that goes from tip to tip of the fin. I'm looking forward to flying one of these again. Well, my dad and I had one of these and a shark when I was little that we flew little pairs with, but never really seriously. I'm looking forward to flying it again and just sort of playing with it. I want to see what it'll do. I'm wondering if it's like the swallowtail where it's going to be like really weird, or if what this tail is really going to affect because it is so bouncy. Like how much can I get out of it? I don't know. Maybe that could be a good backtracking video. We'll see. It was pretty complete. The blue rubber hose that he used for fittings was in really good shape as the center tee. It was missing its lower spreaders, so I had to dig up. I reached out to a few folks, including Joel, got the specifications and some dimensions. So it's now got some APA fittings and some new spreaders. But other than that, totally original. I love the red tarp nose that sort of accentuates the fish's lips and just kind of gives it that fully applique effect all the way out. It's a great looking kite, and at a minimum, it's just gonna be fun to fly. This one, just for fun, let me see if I can get this turned over. So we got a sign and date. It is Neptune 812, which tells you just how many of these things Joel made, because that is a lot. There's Joel's signature, and March 10th of 92, this one was finished. So yeah, super excited about this guy, and to get this one back in the air. Yeah, Neptune, fishy, right? I mean, this one's it, at a minimum. Like, if I can get it to do like a 540, and I mean, wild dreams here, a comet would be pretty fun. I don't know. Maybe that's the backtracking video. Will the Neptune do a comet? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, and we're gonna jump into the next kite. So this is the kite in that estate that kind of sent me after them. Um so I found out about this collection of kites that I bought out of because the maker of this kite had been contacted by someone who was helping the owner of the kites at the time restore a number of the kites. And so this is a Falcon Aero Designs Talon F. Falcon Aero Designs is Doug Stout. Doug is I, I'm sure I had met Doug when I was a kid, but I've gotten to know Doug well since I've been back in kites in the last few years. Um, Doug is a regular in the sort of New Jersey and Mid Atlantic scene. He's still doing Falcon Aero Designs things now. He does a lot of indoor gliders. A absolute repository of knowledge for working with ultralight materials and stuff, and some really really cool stuff that he does with those gliders, getting them down to just unbelievably lightweight. This, however, this is, if I understood the history correctly, the second of his dual line designs from back in the 90s. Um, there was a kite before this, the Falcon, then there was the Talon, and then there was a Raptor after that, I think is the order. Um, Super cool kite. Fairly deep sail for its day. Um, Interesting standoffs here. Kind of like if you remember one of the earlier videos with the Sasaki Katana 2s. These are pultruded carbon, not the usual microcarbon solid rod we're used to. So very, very rigid standoffs, and sort of, I don't know if that's still a standoff out there, if that becomes a wing batten, but all in Sky Shark 3P. It's a Talon F. F was for feather, so this is the ultralight. Huge long spine. I think it's gonna be a really interesting kite to fly and see what it'll do these days. For more modern stuff. I bet it's a rotational monster, and Doug is Doug is meticulous. The attention to detail in the like making of this kite is really impressive, because you got to remember too, this is a, what we can make out of the number. This is a July of '94 kite, so it's coming up on 31 years old, if I did that math right. And you are looking at really precisely cut reinforcers for everything, which I'm sure were hand cut with a template, probably just a cardboard template, because the means for like inexpensive metal templates didn't exist in the 90s the way we have them now, let alone laser cutting. Um, you know, all the big seams are flat felled. Um, this is front cut applique, the white. Just really, really impressive, bits of work on this kite. Um, Fairly early kite for a leech line, but full leech line there, so it should be relatively quiet. I'm looking forward to playing with it, and what I really like about getting kites from people, that were made by people I know, is Doug reached out with history about his time in kites and his kites, but also when I needed to replace all these standoffs because they had gone missing, the exact measurements for material and length. And then he also sent me a tuning guide, because this kite has adjustable outhauls, and he gave me which direction to move them for better precision or to make it floatier and more playful. um all super useful information and stuff that, if I just find a kite out in the world, may not be information that we necessarily have access to for a 30-plus-year-old kite. But because some of these people are still around in kites, we get to get that information, and I'm stoked that I have access to that. Here's something I never thought I'd get to say: I have MEFMs. um yeah, big easy MEFMs. um so given the kind of reverence with which these kites are held, and the frankly astronomical prices that people have been asking for them in recent years, I really figured I would never get a chance to own one. Um, when these came up, and they needed some stuff. This one is pretty close to pristine sail wise, but both of them were missing their standoffs. Um, this one, the Reuben one, which of course is my favorite, has a sail patch you can't probably see on camera there, and a couple more down on the wing. It's been flown and loved for sure. And I still need to figure out, somehow they have two different spreader lengths. Lower and uppers are different between the two kites, so I need to sort that out. But um, you know, that they, compared to what some people have tried to get for them when everything is complete, um, I'm very content with this. And you know, the thing is, they needed stuff. They weren't fully restored, and I put some labor in. This one also needed new lower leading edges because one of them was broken, and I don't have quite enough G-force to let G-forces go, so I did some mathing and flexing of tubes and ended up with some Sky Shark nitros in there. Um, but yeah, MEFMs. So Big Easy Kites, Ray Bordelon. Ray, I hope I'm saying your last name right, Bordelon. Um, Ray had actually reached out to me about the channel like a yearish ago. And we swapped a few emails back then. So when I got my hands on these, I actually reached out to Ray again. And he was kind enough to help me ID them as MEFMs, not EFMs, because to be honest, I wasn't too sure the difference. The biggest difference is MEFMs are Icarics, which these are early rectangle pattern Icarics, but 100% they are poly, not nylon. Um, and also gave me some of his history and history on the kites. These would probably be pretty early MEFMs if I had to guess, because they're rubber tube fittings instead of Ray's injection molded Big Easy Kites fittings that he would do later in the run. Um, Ray's story is super cool. I see a lot of similar history between us. He started playing with some single line kites when he was young, and then anything and everything he could get his hands on that flew. Powered hang gliders, which I have not done, but that's super cool. To fixed wing aviation, and then later on in his life, he having two kids, living down in New Orleans in his hometown, and he stumbled upon a kite shop and bought himself a couple of Peter Powell's as something he could do with his kids. And the rest is pretty much history. He got into dual line kites and designed kites, and with a pretty unique innovation. I can't really think of another kite that had what these guys have, which is um, two things, but they're a combination. These active standoffs here. So if you notice, the standoffs are on a center T sort of arrangement that allows them to move through. And that is actually driven by a bungee here off the center T. But the other thing is the center T was adjustable. These are actually, again, I think, because I don't know about the spreaders, it's entirely possible that somebody made these longer spreaders at some point because they had lost the pieces for this adjustment. But there was spacers that you put into the center T to raise the aspect ratio and widen the wing. And with that, these would shallow out as the sail stretched, and that's what the bungee allowed it to do. Um, it's a super cool kite. It's also a very 90s turbo bridle with that monster turbo leg on there. The one thing I do need to get from Ray is a little bit of information about the bridle markings. I have a vague sense of which direction things are going to go. But I do find it interesting that it's a adjustment on this. There's an adjustment marking here for uphaul, And that one would raise the bridle a ton. There's also in-haul markings there that are also going to vary the turbo leg. So if Ray still has information on those, I will look to collect that from him at some point. Um, they're gorgeous, and you can see why these kites are held in such high regard. Um, for the amount of paneling in this kite, and everything is, again, beautifully flat felled, just really meticulously crafted. Another early leech line kite, so nice quiet flyers. Um, I'm excited. I'm excited to have these, and I'm excited because this one will probably get protected a little. It is a fairly pristine example and full of extinct Icarics. This one is full of extinct Icarics, but it's already been used a little. So that means I get to fly it hard and not be, too worried about having to put another patch in it. MEFMs, so stoked. I've count on one hand how many times I've actually seen one in person, like in my adult life. I'm sure I just don't remember seeing them as a kid, but like I know that they were around. People flew them. It's a really well loved kite. It's most excellent. Um, for those who don't know, that is what MEFM stands for, most excellent flying machine, as opposed to the excellent flying machine, which was the EFM. Yeah, I'm I'm stoked, and that they're in such good condition too. Like I got really lucky here that they're in such good condition. It took very little work to put this one back to rights, and I have one original standoff, so I was able to clone it, and the fittings, because the fittings had unfortunately all fell off the sails, but yeah, all good. So like I said, I can't wait to get this one out, and we'll definitely get some video of that at some point soon. So this might just be the icing on the cake for this bunch of kites. I don't personally own a lot of art kites. My dad has a small art kite collection that was larger. When we stopped flying the first time, he rehomed some stuff to people who would fly them and whatnot. Um, but this one, this one is one of only like 3 or 4 art kites of mine, and the other two of the other ones, interestingly enough, I would say are quads. I would definitely class Elliott Shook's Compass Rose um, mesh quads as art kites. Those are crafted. They are artisanal. Um, this kite also was something that stumped me, which doesn't happen too very often. Um, so there's a couple of bits of writing on here. This side, which is what the guy who had it said to me, was it was Kites by Rocco. Now I'm not sure if that's Rocco or Rollo 2000. On this side, however, it says Windflight Kite Company, Venice, Florida. And there's a signature, and it's again dated 2000. That signature is 2 clearly readable letters there, and they're both R's. So I put a picture of this out to the great Facebook lands and got an answer. Interestingly, I got answers from a couple of people that I know really well. And it turns out that I probably met the artist behind this kite more than a few times because he was originally a Newport, Rhode Island guy. Apparently, he at one point lived just a few doors down from High Flyers Flight Company, Sue Moskowitz's shop, that was right on 10th Street in Newport. Unfortunately, like Sue, the artist who made this kite is no longer with us. His name was Rick Rondinone, and another one. I'm really sorry if I'm getting that last name pronunciation wrong. Rick, during the 90s, produced a dual line kite called the Envision under Windflight, and apparently later on started doing some art kites and quadline kites later on. And this is a remarkable piece of work. There is a mix of ripstop and Icarus here. This line goes all the way across the sail, is a single piece of pinstriping that's been cut. All of these graphics are pinstriped as well. This is all one piece of pinstriping. And then a lot of these little details are actually painted on. Unfortunately, some of the paint is not holding on as well as other spots. I got to figure out a way to get that to re-adhere. Where the paint was thicker, it's beginning to get a little loose. But it's a really interesting kite. It's a Rev 2 sized quad. It does have a Rev Advantage leading edge, but the uprights are actually a via protruded. It is rigged with a direct connection to the uprights instead of a more traditional bridle, and has typical Rhode Island Northeast setup of magic sticks. In a lot of ways, with the direct connection bridle, it's very reminiscent of like Jeff Burka's homebrew Rev 2s that he builds and flies. And it's gorgeous. And I mean, I feel like I owe it to get, it needs to go in the air at least a couple of times, but I'm going to be obviously very, very cautious of beating this up. I want to protect it as much as possible. If I can find it an out of the sun place to hang, maybe this will become a wall hanger. Because it is just a gorgeous piece of art, and given that Rick's no longer with us, definitely one I want to take care of. It's super cool though. Like 2000 is pretty early for snagless covers on the wingtips, all the bungees. So first of all, every hole in the sail is metal grommeted, stainless metal grommets. Then all the knots are carefully hidden in spots where they wouldn't snag a line. So there's as little chance of fouling as possible. This thing was made for playtime, which is just super, super cool. And again, I think that's berry. It's either berry or wine, teal. You've got Reuben down here, some plum down there. Just beautiful uses of the Icarus card of colors. And then when he couldn't find exactly the color he looked for, he turned to ripstop because that's in between a midnight and a royal blue. Just very cool stuff. And a really, really pretty kite. And we come to the last kite in tonight's video. This one, this is my most recent eBay acquisition. It is a Goodwind Flash. For those that don't know, Goodwind's kites, Kathy Goodwin, was probably best known for her cellular box, the Starflake, and I can't remember what the other two were called. There was a bigger and a smaller one. And then she did actually make a couple of sport kites. The Zephyr, which was the full size, and this guy, which was a 3/4 size version of the Zephyr, the Flash. I'm really excited about this one because, first of all, I got it for $32, which is like pretty remarkable considering when I took it out of the bag, and I've put it aside for safekeeping, it still had its price tag on it. A sticker price tag off of an old grocery gun for $119. It is so complete and original that I present to you the owner's manual, which in and of itself is pretty remarkable because, like, this is a early to mid 90s kite. Somebody had to, like, create that graphic, that illustration. Kathy didn't just run these off her printer. These were made at a print, like a press, a print company. Like, this is stuff that we don't do anymore because, like, who needs to outside of like mass production? Like, Prism has things printed, HQ has things printed. Boutique kite manufacturers don't have things printed anymore. And I mean, it's pristine. It is all our Icarus. Um, it's all the fittings are fresh and soft and pliable. All the stops are solidly glued. It's got this wonderful 90s seatbelt webbing nose. It's never touched a park or a beach. It was somebody bought it and put it in their basement and never touched it again. Um, and it's, I mean, it's such a cool little time capsule. I know we saw them on a few other kites, but like the blue leading edge material, color matching leading edge is super 90s, and I just love that about it. They were always an alternating color in these sort of spikes, and then an accent color in the tips. My dad and I had a couple of them. I don't know what they're in the category of kites we had that we stopped flying and moved on, and I don't know where they went. And I'm really, just for the nostalgia of it, at a minimum, really excited to have one again and to see what it does. Like, I mean, there weren't a lot of tricks at the time we had these, and the last time I had one, and I certainly couldn't do a lot of tricks back then. So just to see what it'll do and play around with it and just have some fun is going to be exciting. And like I said, it's pretty, and you know, it's history, and you know, it's sort of along this theme of American kite makers tonight. Um, we started with Revolution and Top of the Line on the West Coast. We visited Joel Scholz down in Texas. We Doug in New Jersey, um, Ray in New Orleans, um, Rick in first Rhode Island, then Florida, and now Kathy from out in the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, right? I think she's Oregon. Was she Oregon or Washington? Oddly enough, because this manual's Washington. She was Seattle. Neighbor of Prism. There you go. All across the country. Bunch of American history. American kite history. Really cool. Um, Guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. I sure did, and I'm sure going to enjoy playing with all these kites and getting them in the air, and you'll see video of that soon. As always, thank you all so much for liking, following, subscribing, and sharing. I get to keep doing this. I want to keep doing this because you guys enjoy it. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And as always, we will see you out there, Skyrider.